Drones seem ubiquitous these days, but the future of the American armed drone program was far from certain at its inception. WSJ senior editor Warren Bass has researched the American drone program since his time on the staff of the 9/11 Commission 10 years ago, and he joins us now to tell us the story behind the rise of the drone. Warren, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, while the Obama administration is most closely identified with the drone strikes, you say the story begins with the Clinton administration.
The story really begins in August 1998 when al-Qaeda blows up the U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, which is a big jolt for the Clinton administration, realizing how dangerous al-Qaeda could actually be. And it tries a variety of ways of killing bin Laden, including airstrikes in August 98, which missed bin Laden, and then tries a bunch of other methods, working with proxy forces to try to capture or perhaps kill him, working with a complicated arrangement to use cruise missiles in the Arabian Sea from submarines to try to get him. But they have this consistent problem of never having what's known as actionable intelligence, reliable enough information about where his whereabouts are to actually get him with any of these methods. And at one point, President Clinton scribbles on a CIA memo saying, surely the U.S. can do better about getting bin Laden. And someone at the Pentagon suggests maybe we should use these drones.
Hey, let's try these out and see what happens. And what happened the first time they tried one?
So the first time the U.S. flies a Predator drone over Afghanistan is late in the Clinton administration, the fall of 2000. And the very first flight out, they see a tall man in white robes who the CIA later concludes was probably Osama bin Laden.
And yet, so this was sort of a fascinating beginning, but things really changed after 9/11, correct?
Exactly. The drones that we know of today are famously able to kill people. They have Hellfire or other missiles that are strapped to them. The drones that are flown in the Clinton administration don't have that capacity yet. And it's only after 9/11 that they're flown with missiles strapped to them. And there's a big argument inside the Bush administration before 9/11 about whether to actually fly reconnaissance drones the way was done in the Clinton administration, or to wait for the armed Predators. And in fact, the effect of that is that the Bush administration, after it comes into office, doesn't fly drones over Afghanistan, armed or unarmed, until after 9/11.
Interesting. And so you find two central ironies in the final adoption of the armed drone program. And what are those?
So the first is, as we've just discussed, this question of how to use the drones is sort of a bureaucratic hot potato that is juggled around internally inside the Bush administration, in particular before 9/11, whether to use reconnaissance flights, whether to wait for the armed drones, who should pay for them, who should have their finger on the trigger. And after 9/11, all of those bureaucratic arguments suddenly go away. And in November of 2001, just weeks after 9/11, there's a senior al-Qaeda figure who's killed with an armed drone, first person ever killed by an armed drone. That second irony is that one of the reasons that U.S. policymakers are driven to think about using drones is because they're so targeted. And these cruise missile strikes and other things that people are thinking about before 9/11 could have killed a lot more civilians. And that's one of the reasons that the Clinton administration is reluctant about some of those methods, and some of the Bush folks as well.
Right.
Now that the drone program is so widely seen as something that kills civilians in the Muslim world, it was something policymakers got to originally in part because it would minimize civilian casualties.
All right, and here we are today where drone is the buzzword du jour. Amazon wants to use them for deliveries. Hollywood uses them for filming. People are worried about spying. There's no turning back now, is there, Warren?
No, there doesn't seem to be. In the current conflict over Gaza, even Hamas put some little drone up in the air. This is sort of a brave new world we're in.
Thank you so much for putting some context on that for us. Thank you so much, Warren.